Hey Internet, James here with another batch of satisfying stories. I only find the tastiest Reddit stories, so you don't have to. We've got some great ProRevenge stories for you today, starting with a drunk dad who ends up calling the cops on himself. Father endangers his kid to tell me off, ends up calling the police for himself. A story by Dragon Dad IX. A few weeks ago, I was driving in my neighborhood playing Pokemon Go, not while driving obviously. The end of my neighborhood has a Pokestop that I collect items from every day, as you get a bonus items if you collect from stops every day. This particular day was my 7th day, meaning I would get even more items and would start over from day 1 the next day. I drove to the stop, got the items, set my phone on my passenger seat, and went home. The road I was driving on was 20 miles an hour, but I was going about 12 or 13 miles an hour. I drive up a small hill and turn a corner when a wild family appears, including the jerk dad. The wife, her friend, and the 3 kids walking by them stepped off to the side of the road to let me pass. But as I was going by, jerk dad, who had a young boy of about 3 to 4 years old in one arm and holding a Budweiser bottle in his other hand, this is important later, actually stepped closer to my car and yelled something at me. Being as I'd gotten into an accident recently and was trying to be as safe as possible, I stopped the car, rolled down my window, and asked if he was alright. The conversation went as follows. "Are you guys alright? Why'd you do that?"
You see my family, right?
"Yes, what about them?"
You know you were driving too fast for this neighborhood, right?
I should point out that I live in Illinois, and while my car was being repaired from the accident, I had a loaner car with Wisconsin plates. "Sir, I was going about 12 miles an hour and the limit here is 20. I wasn't driving too fast."
Well, you almost hit me and my son.
"Yeah, 'cause you stepped close to a moving vehicle. The only one putting you guys in danger was yourself." The jerk dad looks down at the phone in my passenger seat.
Well, I don't know the laws in Wisconsin, but here in Illinois, you can't be on your phone while driving. I'm calling the police.
"I don't know their laws either. This car is just a loaner. I live here in Illinois."
Then you should know the laws. I'm calling the cops.
Yeah, have fun with that. And with that, I just left. I know I probably should have stayed, but since I didn't actually do anything wrong, I wasn't taking his threat seriously. I went home and made some ramen to eat. As I was sitting in my dining room, I look out the window and nearly choke on my noodles. Jerk dad followed me home. He was on his cell phone with the dispatcher, and I thought I was screwed. About 5 minutes later, 2 cop cars with 3 police officers, one of which, who didn't really talk through the whole thing, arrived. I stepped outside thinking I was done for. The officers started to question the 2 of us. "OP, do you know why we're here? I have a pretty good idea what you think you're doing here, but why don't you let me know?"
Well, this gentleman called us saying you attempted to run his family over after you got caught texting while driving and going way over the speed limit.
My mind went blank for a few seconds. This jerk actually said that I had attempted vehicular manslaughter. My mind started working again, and I said, "Sir, that couldn't be farther from the truth. I was driving home from playing Pokemon Go on my phone when this man stepped close to my car while I was driving. My phone was on the passenger seat the entire ride home."
He's lying! He nearly killed my family! Arrest him now!
"Sir, calm down. We'll settle this."
Opie, what was this man doing when the incident occurred?
Suddenly, an idea popped into my head, and right there, on the fly, the revenge started. "Well, he was walking with his family along the side of the road, carrying a young boy on one arm and holding a beer bottle in the other."
That's not true, you piece of garbage!
"Sir, control yourself." As I drove by them, the rest of the family went to the side of the road, but he actually stepped closer to my car. I think he got within like an inch of me.
This is BS! He's trying to protect himself.
"Sir, if what he's saying is true, you could actually be arrested here, not him." "Are you sure that's what happened?" "Positive. He got way too close to my moving vehicle holding my child and a bottle of Miller Lite."
"It wasn't Miller Lite, it was Budweiser."
He cut himself off and tried to backtrack, but it was too late. All the officers looked at him. He tried to defend himself, but then Police Officer 3 said something I thought I would never hear a cop say in my life. "Sir, have you had anything to drink this evening?" Jerk dad. now very less confident. No. They move him to one of the cop cars and give him a breathalyzer test. 0.12. Just over the limit. Gotcha, a-hole. Jerk Dad ending up confessing to them that I was right and was arrested for public intoxication and child endangerment. He has to go before a judge to determine if he's a danger to his family. The officers asked if I wanted to press any charges, but I told them no, since he already had enough on his plate to deal with. Now this was some really quick thinking by Dragon Dad. Most people would be completely thrown for a loop when the police arrived at their house, but the truth shall set you free. It was just so satisfying when the idiot father couldn't help himself and I had to correct Dragon Dad on what type of beer he was drinking when all this happened. It's like the lizard part of his brain took over and had to let everyone know he was a Budweiser man, not a Miller Lite dude. So perfect. Moving on, how about some malicious compliance that morphs into pro-revenge when a college security officer gets back at a hated boss? I don't make the rules, I just enforce them. A story by Fried Alto. So I work in college dorms in a sort of generic first response role. We do a bit of everything, mostly security, but also medical, fire, psychological. It's a weird and often quite tough job, but quite rewarding. These dorms are kinda like a gated community and a couple miles away from the main campus. At the top of this village, there's a hub where all the staff are based. It also serves as a venue for events and has some facilities for students, catering, gym, etc., as well as a few meeting facilities in the staff area, which any department in the college can book if they so wish. Between the parking spots and the back doors, there's also disabled parking spots. Now, one day I was coming in for my 10-hour night shift, and to my dismay, I found that all of the staff parking spots were occupied, which basically never happens. But I knew that the HR department had a big thing there that afternoon in the meetings facility I had mentioned, so I figured out what was going on. And though it's not technically against the parking policy, they are college staff after all, usually staff who don't actually work in the building are expected to park in the visitor parking bays, not staff parking. So I had a problem. It was 10 minutes till the start of my shift. I'm not allowed to use the student car parks. What about visitor parking? Well, that gets locked up overnight until after my shift ends. If I parked there, then in the morning I'd have to go unlock the visitor parking, bring the key back, leave, and one of my day shift colleagues would have to go lock it back up. My only other option was to park down the hill. But then by the time I got there and walked back, I'd be late for my shift and miss the handover. You see where this is going. I want to make it clear that I would never normally park in a disabled bay. It's generally a scummy thing to do. I'm disabled myself, but not in the way that entitles me to use disabled parking. However, there are a few things to note here. 1. Nobody ever uses those bays, unless we have a disabled person coming in for an event, because the back door is keycard access only, and there's no bell. So it's little use to students or members of the public unless they've made a prior arrangement to be let in. 2. There weren't any events scheduled that night, and the chances of someone disabled randomly deciding they needed to park at the back of the hub, which is near nothing else, unannounced, is negligible. Never mind 3 of them. Remember, there's 3 bays in total. Besides, in the middle of the night, they could just park next to it and at the side of the road because there's about as much traffic there at night as on Route 50. So, I decided I'd park in one of the disabled bays, the farthest from the door, next to the staff spaces. Due to the long and unsociable hours, I get to take breaks liberally as long as it doesn't interfere with anything. In the extremely unlikely event that more than 2 disabled people had called in to park and access the building, which I'd find out about during handover, I'd just take a break right then after starting, drive my car away down the hill, and walk back up. I go in, get the handover, and as expected, no one is expected to come in. I was the supervisor for that shift. Our shift patterns are rotating, and the longest in service is the supervisor. So I set up my colleagues for the shift, log on, set up the cameras the way I want them, read my emails, turn on my radio, yada yada. After a while, I get one of the guys, Phil, to cover the cameras so I can go tell a resident he's getting disciplined for vandalism. I then have one of those golden sitcom moments where I open the office door right before someone was about to knock on it. I recognize her immediately. She's the Dean of Facilities. We'll call her Karen. Now, we're not in the facility section. We're in the auxiliary services section. So this lady is not my boss in any capacity. She is, however, far higher up the food chain than me, so it's this awkward situation where unless I have a great reason not to, I still have to bow down to her or I'll get called into HR for an insubordination, especially since the building we're in is technically operated by the facility section. Some more context. Karen is one of the most hated figures among low-level staff in the entire college. Your classic power trip witch. You can practically see the perverse arousal in her eyes whenever she talks down to anyone on a lower salary than her, which is all of the time, and she's pulled no end of downright evil shirt in her many years within the institution. So a startled Karen practically pushes me back into the office. It turns out she was attending whatever event the HR department had on in the building that afternoon, and she was one of the people parked in the staff spaces out back. Now, she doesn't have an office in the building, so by convention, she should be parking in the visitor spaces, but again, that's not technically in the policy. Anyway, she saw my car parked in the disabled bay on her way back to her car. She knows who I am. We've had numerous, always unpleasant, interactions in the past, and she saw my name on the staff sticker in my windshield. Where do you get off thinking you can park in the disabled bay, OP? Well, nobody uses those. Oh, what? So you think you're above the rules just because it's you who enforces them? Look, it's no big deal. I'll go move the car. Oh no, not on the college time you don't. I'll take it off my break. Nope. Breaks are for relaxation, and moving your car is not relaxation. Well, then what do you want me to do? I want you to issue yourself the standard $70 fine. See what I mean about the power trip? Are you serious? Absolutely. You need to learn that you don't make the rules, you just enforce them. At this point, I stare at her in disbelief. Now, I have a short fuse at the best of times, and I really want to yell bloody murder at her, but I value my job, so I swallow my pride and go write myself a ticket. More context here. We're essentially subcontracted by the city to do the parking and traffic enforcement for all roads and parking on college land. So the authority behind these tickets is the city, not the college. I know if I go talk to that vandal student now, I'll just let off steam at the kid unfairly when it already wasn't gonna be a pleasant talking to. And I know that sitting and staring at the cameras would make me seethe. So I go restock the staff kitchen, then talk to the kid, and after that I get back to the office. Bear in mind that Phil, my buddy who I put on the cameras, witnessed the whole thing. Is that cockroach still here? I ask. Yeah, she's just on her way out now, he says, pointing at one of the cameras, followed by, Huh, that's weird. She's leaving through the front. Karen regularly comes here to use the gym at the end of the workday. It's free for students and staff. That's presumably what she was doing today, too, seeing as it's now been a good 45 minutes since she humiliated me. When she does that, she takes a cab home because she lives at the opposite end of the city and traffic is a nightmare at this time in the evening. And we all know it's a million times less awful being stuck in the traffic if it isn't you who's driving. She then takes a cab back in the next morning to pick up her car and drive to the main campus. It's now that I make a beautiful, almost erotic realization. Yeah, I'm a hypocrite, sue me. I pull up the parking policy, scroll through it, and there it is, in delicious bold lettering. It is not permissible for members of staff to leave their cars parked in a staff parking area during non-working hours. It then lists a few exceptions, mainly breaks and stuff like that, none of which apply to Karen. So I'm about to write a ticket when I have an even better idea. You see, our cameras are pretty snazzy. About 6 years ago, all the cameras that monitor the roadways were updated to plate recognition cameras by the city. So now on top of the 40 days of saved camera footage, we also have the plate log, which has, so far, been kept indefinitely, and can be used to figure out when a car enters the compound and when a car left, since we only have 3 entry or exit roads. I explain my plan to Phil. He has absolutely no reservations about doing me a solid and spending time going back through the plate log system to see how many times Karen has left her car parked here overnight. 4 hours later, and he's assembled all the dates. Over the past 4 years and however many months, weeks, and days since the plate system came online, Karen had left her car overnight on a staggering 585. Yes, 585 separate occasions. So I log into the city's Find Portal software. Yep, that's actually what it's called. You can only write tickets for ongoing or momentum violations. If you spot something using auxiliary systems like cameras or what have you after the fact, you need to issue a fine by mail. I put in her office address and start entering all 585 dates, times, and copy and paste the reference to the exact part of the parking policy, as well as the city statute that gives this policy the force of law for each single one. The result is a thing of beauty spanning 13 pages and totaling $40,950. At this point, all of the guys are back in the office, so I call them round, knowing they'll all enjoy this almost as much as me. When I press log and print, I'm hit with a warning I've never seen before. The fine you are about to issue exceeds $10,000. Are you sure you wish to proceed? Everyone is dumbstruck. I start laughing, then Phil, and then everyone else. It's glorious. I print it, stuff it in a windowed, prepaid city envelope, and put it in the external mail. The city doesn't allow us to use the internal mail nor hand deliver fines. I guess it's for paper trail reasons. The cherry on the top is, I then get to issue a ticket and put it under her windshield because of course she's also there that night. Of course, the next time I come into work after she receives this, she's waiting for me in the office. What the hell, OP? Do you really think this is gonna fly? I responded with puppy dog eyes. What do you mean? The ticket! The forking fines! Do you really think this will fly? Rules are rules, Karen. You know as well as I do that that's never actually been done here. Well, Karen, I don't make the rules. I just enforce them. Exit Karen. Stage right. Now, there's more to this. Some good, some bad. I'll start with the bad. Karen ended up suing. I had to go to court on my day off. The silver lining was that I was theoretically there representing the city, and so I wasn't being sued personally and had the city attorney. The court ended up reducing the fine to $10,000, which apparently was the city's maximum for post-facto fines issued at one time. I guess that's why the warning was there. But Karen had sued to get the fine dismissed entirely, so it was still a victory. Kinda. She also tried to take it up with HR, but the Dean of Auxiliary Services also hates her, and he stuck up for me to HR, so that went nowhere. The best thing though, this year, I was appointed to the Auxiliary Services Policy Review Board. Last week, I managed to get the parking policy amended. It now says that if staff visit a building other than where their office is, unless they are teaching a class, they need to use visitor parking if there are fewer than 20 parking bays at the building and there are empty visitor bays. So, starting in June, Karen won't be allowed to park in the staff spots at all. And ironically, it turns out that I now do, in fact, make the rules. Well, that's going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for watching. I also want to say a thank you to my recent subscribers as well. I'm almost at 10 subscribers, and while that may be a very small number for some people, it's a huge number to me. I really appreciate everyone watching my videos. If you aren't subscribed, go ahead and hit that button below along with the notification bell if you want to know when the next one goes live. Until next time, have a good one!